And we are live. Welcome, people. Today we're going to have another talk about religion and Western culture. This was basically asked by Rin and Virgentrix. Well, they didn't ask it, but they thought it would be a good topic. I agreed. So we're going to revisit this. If you want anything to say, if you want in, let me know. And I'm going to give the word to Rin, but Rin doesn't seem to be here now. Are you here, Rin?
Yeah. Yes,
yes.
I forgot what me and the other guy were talking about now.
Well, we're going to talk about religion and Western culture.
Yeah, I just forgot where me and the other guy were going.
Okay. So we're going to ad-lib it. Well, that's okay. We usually do that here anyway, so there's no problem there. Okay, let's go back into history. There was religion, there was Western culture. How did these two interact with each other? Or did any of you want to bring up something else to start with?
I think that's a fine way to start it. When Christianity was founded, as we all know, Europe was basically under the control of the Roman Empire. They were the main power in the Mediterranean. Mm-hmm. And what we call Western culture can basically be traced back to the Romans and to the Greeks who inspired them.
And the Germanic tribes. Come on, fair is fair.
Sure, yes. Christianity was founded at the height of the Roman Empire, and it took a while, but it eventually became quite popular. Now, people who were upper class, who were educated within the Roman Empire, who converted to Christianity, usually kept their previous customs. And it was the same with the Germanic tribes as well. A lot of things that Christians celebrate nowadays began as either Latin or Germanic holidays. So, like Christian holidays would be what used to be Latin and Germanic holidays. Christmas is a good example of this. Christmas was Christmas is sort of a combination of German and Latin rituals that occurred on the not always on the 25th of December, but towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
Yuletide, winter solstice, yeah, but those.
The Feast of Sol Invictus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Christmas and Saturnalia were really similar. Like even in Saturnalia, they exchange gifts and shit.
Well, you had that within the Roman religions. You had Saturnalia, but you had Yuletide with the Germanic tribes, especially the ones that were more north. Mm-hmm. I can give you a full explanation on why, but
yeah. I bring this up for a good reason, not just to talk about holidays, but to talk about culture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, what was Latin culture and Germanic culture basically became Christian culture.
Yeah.
Because people who were well-to-do, who had a lot of financial influence in the Roman Empire and were quite educated, basically dictated what the culture was. And what was very popular at the time was Stoicism. Stoicism was very popular at the height of the Roman Empire.
I'm going to interrupt you there for a second because there is more to it. If we look at the Roman Empire, the clergy, if we want to call it that, because you had religion, and with religion you had priests and whatnot, were often well-to-do people who became clergy because they were able to afford paying for festivities. This is true during the Germanic tribe culture as well.
I didn't know this. Not exactly.
I mean, you had to be able, as a, for example, in the Nordic cultures, as a goddess, which is basically like a priest or a vicar or whatnot, you had to be able to remember and organize the celebrations around the different days. You didn't have to pay for it all, but you had to be initiated, to say the least. this is true for the Roman culture as well, because a lot of people seem to think that the Roman culture and the Germanic cultures were far apart. But in reality, they weren't that far apart.
They would like to have thought of themselves as far apart.
Yes.
They would have liked to, the Romans, the Latins would have liked to have thought of themselves as superior to the Germanic cultures.
Yes.
However, it was really a difference in aesthetics more than anything.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because if we
Basically,
look at...
the difference, basically, Roman culture and religion was Germanic culture and religion with marble.
Yes. I mean, we know that a lot of what Germanic religion is tied in at the hip, so to speak, with Greek mythology, for example, Norse mythology, Celtic mythology.
Celtic.
Yeah, they're basically all sort of the same thing.
European religions were all, religions that arose from Europe were very similar to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps it had something to do with the climate, perhaps it had something to do with trading, probably both.
No, I think it has to do with something else altogether, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think it has to do with history. Because all these European cultures were linked with each other.
Linked, you mean by trading?
Not just by trading, also purely geographically.
Right.
Yes.
They had a similar starting point, or you can say a similar points of where they started off. So some religions went one way, some religions went other ways. But yeah, you could sort of say that.
Well, the tribal religions of Europe, they basically what you're saying is they all came from the same basic trunk, and
They came from the same basic concept.
yes, and I think that that's a fair analysis. I think that what ended up becoming the Greek, what we refer to as the Greek culture and Greek religion, was very different from the rest of Europe only because they were well connected to the Mediterranean, and they were wealthy.
Yes.
That's why you see in the 6th and 5th and 4th centuries BC the rise of philosophy in Greece, but nowhere else in Europe, as far as we know, or philosophy as such.
Philosophy as such, because this is
Yes, yeah, I recognize my mistake.
what we think philosophy is more or less what we've assumed philosophy to be. Philosophy started as a way to improve that people need to think, and somehow it stopped being that. If that makes sense to me.
If somebody asks, if anybody asks me, the beginning of philosophy began when religion began. People like to think that philosophy came from religion and science came from philosophy, but I think that philosophy is the precursor to both religion and science.
Yes,
And that religion and science are
well, it's a
linked
bit double, because philosophy isn't the precursor to religion. Religion is the precursor to philosophy. Now, this is not something I would like to admit.
religion is by its very nature philosophical.
Yes.
Or organized religion,
Even
or just belief.
Even primitive animism is philosophical.
I think not all religions, but the concept of religion, Carlos.
It's still religion, but religion is just a grouping of faith, right?
Yes.
Because if we go back far enough to Neanderthals, for example, they practiced a belief which led them to of an afterlife, which led them to bury their dead with offerings. It's a ritualized burial, not just dumping the body, which had happened before them. It could have gone back to the Neanderthal and our ancestors, Heidelbergensis, We don't know yet. We haven't found any evidence of that. But
Do you think that it's possible religion goes back to the discovery of fire and just
I don't
talks around the
know. There's no
campsite?
there's no correlation. No, there's no correlation. But I'm sure that by the time at least Heidelbergensis, fire was possibly discovered by Homo erectus, and his descendant Heidelbergensis, which is the direct descendants of us, Neanderthals, Denisovians, and another one that we don't know about, just by the genetic. We know about by the genetic material in the Andamans. I've always talked about this. Yeah. We don't know. We don't know that. We absolutely don't know anything about that fourth possible cousin of ours, a human species, not another thing. It's a human species. We know that they practiced ritual burials, and they were not the only ones, because we have also found another species very recently, Homo naledi, which appear to have also buried their dead, not as ritualistically complex as the Neanderthals. They took them into a cave deliberately to so far. The cave, there's two chambers. It's in South Africa. The Star something, I can't remember the name. God, I'm shit at names. They took them there deliberately to a chamber that you have to crawl in to get there. So that's ritually disposing of the dead. It is ritually, and these hominins, Homo species, lived about 300,000 years ago. They had half the size. Their brains were half our size. They were 500 cc cubic centimeters of brain size. So then there was possibly no philosophical thought or basis of their burial. They just were in awe with nature, possibly.
Well, I don't know.
That's
Philosophy
just,
to me
possible.
can be as basic as this helps. Philosophy to me can be as basic as well, this slightly sharper rock can kill cleaner and better than this duller rock. I think that you can call that philosophy. I think that you can call the earliest stone tools, the earliest technological advances, a form of philosophy, even if it's just a very primitive one. I have a very different view of philosophy than just this this science, this subject that began in Greece in the 7th century BC.
I don't know. I honestly don't know that.
But
no.
Philosophy is just a different way of thinking, right?
Philosophy is to me, philosophy is synonymous with idea.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think technological advance is possible without idea, without conceptualizing.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So I think that even if it's the most primitive form of thought you can imagine, sharpening a stone tool can be considered a form of philosophy.
Yes.
Or as part
So
of
then you would say you should know. Well, chimpanzees also fashion tools. Do they apply the same? Could that be applied to them as well?
Perhaps it could be. I don't know. Do they make what kind of tools do they make? I didn't know that chimpanzees make tools.
Oh yes, they do. They
Actually,
make they get a stick, right? A branch. They take out the leaves and fashion it so they can fish for termites.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
But it's
That's,
kind of funny because we see this with the monkeys and the apes. But a lot of people don't realize we see this with birds.
Yes, I was going to say that as well. Yes.
So
Right.
it's not that unique. We're just better
Right.
at it, but it's not that unique.
There
That's
are
amazing.
crows.
I did not know that chimpanzees could actually do that. So they get a sharp stick, and they know that it makes hunting easier.
Exactly, fishing
That's
for termites.
amazing.
They clean it. Yeah.
Oh my goodness! I didn't-
And also the crows. There are species, some crows and blackbirds, that actually fashion sticks to pick out grubs from
Yeah, I think that's the most primitive form of philosophy you can think of. This works better than something else, or this
Yes.
works.
But that's the
yes.
thing, though. I mean, I like it when people start talking about philosophy and science. I do see the two things as different. Philosophy is basically like the father or the mother of science. It's the basis of coming to think. Science goes deeper into it. It sets boundaries on how to think, not so much on what you're allowed to think about, but
I think that I think that science is as well as religion are subcategories within philosophy.
yes,
But they're both overarching subcategories. I think philosophy is the it's maybe not the precursor, but the driving force behind both of them, because you can't have science without empiricism, and empiricism is an epistemological subject. Epistemology is one of the main forms it's one of the main subjects of philosophy. Epistemology means, well, how do you know? How do you learn things? Empiricism says we learn by observation, and that's the basis of science, of natural science specifically,
Yes.
and chemistry.
Here's a picture of a orangutan using a spear for fishing.
Exactly. Yes.
For goodness, I
wait a
love
second.
that.
I'll share it. Wait a second.
Yeah.
Spear fishing
absolutely love this.
orangutan.
I love this. Oh my god.
Come on. Why? Come on. There you go. So you're sharing now, right?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yep. Sharing. He's sharing. Yep.
Okay. I'm crap.
Click
at
on
this
so it
bullshit.
stays open. Exactly. When you click on his smokers, he'll stay.
So,
I think that
That's
that you
it.
can consider this philosophical based on how I've defined it.
I don't doubt it. Like I said, I have absolutely no clue on philosophy. So
Well, what I was trying to get at earlier is Roman Empire. The Roman Empire and the intelligentsia of the Roman Empire had a philosophy that was primarily based on Stoicism, and Stoicism is eventually what won out. What became popular. And when they became Christian, when the Roman Empire became Christianized, it was still quite Stoic. And Christianity basically in its early period was a mixture of Stoic ethics and their metaphysics was a mixture of Platonism and Hebrew myth. So it was when people say that Christianity is a mixture of Greco-Roman ideas and Jewish ideas, they're mostly talking about the metaphysics, because Christians, even back during the early Roman period, or the early Christian period, rather, during the Roman Empire, they didn't really believe in what was taught in the Old Testament and the New Testament. They believed in Stoic virtue ethics, because that was, well, basically that's what the secular laws were based on. And it's as simple as that, and not to mention the fact that most people couldn't read. The literacy rate was 20% in the best possible circumstances.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Also, that some of the first translations of the New Testament, or not even the translations, the first writings of the first the New Testament were in Greek.
And Stoicism is very, very. It's a very fabulous ethical system. Well, it was popular up until around the 14th and 15th centuries, and nations remained very stable during that time. From a societal standpoint, obviously they rose and fell through warfare. That was mostly based on feudalism and barons and bishops fighting over territory. But
there is more to
basically,
do.
the societies themselves within the feudal societies remain stable, and so it can be said that Stoicism is actually a very good way of running a human society.
But that's the thing, though. There was more to the feudal system than just Stoicism. It's basically a replacement of the old tribal system. It's basically okay. So you used to have a chieftain. Now you have a duke or a baron or
Yes.
a Dutch.
Yes, and that's absolutely correct. I'm not saying that Stoicism is the cause of feudalism, but Stoicism kept the peasant populations working, and Christianity was a very good way of getting them to accept that.
That's not
Because
really
people
true,
would
though.
believe that if they did these things and committed these acts, they would go to heaven. And
Yes,
most of the
but
time, that kept the peasants in line.
Yes,
and
but
that's why
no.
society
I'm sorry.
remained-
I am interrupting you because this is not unique to Christianity. This is the same.
I'm
in
not saying
all-
it is.
This is the same in all of the religions that were already part of the Western world, so to speak. Tribalist, Nordic religions, Celtic religions, Greek mythology, Roman mythology, if you want to use mythology rather than religion. Basically, they're the same thing to me, don't get me wrong. They all tell the same things. There are a bunch of rules we all have to abide by. There are a bunch of, how do you call it? A set of behaviors we would want to see from our society.
And there are eternal rewards for
There are
following.
rewards. I'm not going to say eternal, but there are rewards.
Christianity says eternal.
Christianity says eternal. The other religions, the other European religions, are not as unlimited. Then again, Christianity is one of the first and only religions that started saying, like, oh, well, but you have to believe us, because if you don't, you're going to suffer for the rest of eternity.
Yeah, they kept that part, but they modified so much of the original Jewish faith. For example, the eating of pork. Once they got into the Germanic areas and even Western Europe in general, which the Western European love pork, and they said, "Oh shit, if we have to get them to convert, we have to get rid of that teaching that pork is haram."
Well, wasn't it also killing a bunch of people?
Or not kosher.
I was just going to finish what I was saying, which was that this
I'll stop.
combination of this combination of feudalism and Stoicism washed down with a cup of Christianity kept Europe stable for 1,000 years. The only thing that ended up cracking the foundations of that was the rise of Protestantism and the rise of
Islam.
Puritan Christianity.
No, actually, Puritan
The
Christianity.
idea that no, the Old Testament should be followed and the New Testament should be followed.
Yeah, but those
more vehemently, and that's what ended up leading to the Christian wars of religion in the early Enlightenment period, late Renaissance period.
Yes, but those are basically a recapture of the original Christian doctrines, because Christianity throughout the Western world, well, it wasn't comparable to Christianity in the Middle East and in what we would now call Byzantium. Because their Christianity didn't change as much as the Christianity in Europe. The Christianity in Europe stayed a one-God religion, that part is true, but most of the concepts from the polytheistic religions in Europe became the driving factor behind Christianity. So European Christianity cannot be compared to Christianity in the Middle East.
I should have said Catholicism.
Yes,
It is, yeah.
yes.
Catholicism and Orthodoxy. It was never really established in the Nicene Council.
Nope.
Even Constantine could not get everyone to agree. So he, as everyone knows, he commanded the four what do you call them? The 4 books, the 4 Portuguese, the Evangelos. I can't remember them now. Yeah.
I know what you're talking about, though.
Yeah, the word just fucking doesn't come out. And the Lord's Prayer, that's what he established, and he said the Trinity. But the Trinity, the belief that God, the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, it was never completely resolved. It still isn't resolved. And the Protestant Revolution that started by Martin Luther King, which was basically because he didn't like the indulgences. He saw Rome as fucking really corrupt, because the same didn't happen. A Reformation didn't happen in the Eastern churches.
No.
Because they didn't have those.
But the Reformation that started in the Western religions, in European religions, is because of European culture. We like to think our Western culture is shaped by Christianity. It's the other way around. Christianity is shaped by our Western religious and our Western culture. And that's why, for example, if we look at Catholicism or Orthodox Christianity, we can see a huge difference. And people somehow seem to have mistaken that difference for, well, yeah, but they didn't change. Well, but of course they didn't change, because they didn't have Western society.
Western society that does seem to be a quality of Europe that is, and specifically Western Europe, that is very different from most of the world. Is that Western Europe is very subject to change, more so than anywhere else in human history, I think. Western concepts and Western culture, Western ideas, Western religions all seem to be more open, or if not more open, then at least more subject to
oh, this is beautiful.
Grand sweeping changes.
The thing is, you're completely correct, and at the same time, this is why you're wrong. Western culture isn't more open than other cultures because of the way Western culture is. Western culture is more open to other concepts because of the religion Western culture created. Look at the primary Western religions before Christianity. They were all polytheistic. We've seen more polytheistic religions throughout the world. I mean, India is polytheistic. Hindu, Sikh. Well, Sikh isn't really polytheistic. It's more...
No, it's monotheistic.
It is monotheistic, but it allows the concept of multiple gods. Basically, they're saying all the gods are incarnations of one god. So, yeah, it's not really polytheistic anymore. But if we look at Western polytheistic religions, all of them said these are our gods, but there are more. And our gods sometimes fight with the other gods and sometimes make peace with the other gods. The religious concept and the cultural concept of the Western cultures were based on society. Whereas
how was the society different?
Because most other deities are based on domination. And this is not just Christianity and Judaism and Zoroastrianism and Islam and Hinduism. Sikh is not, by the way. Sikh is not about dominating others. But we saw the same, for example, in America when we talk about the shamanic cultures. We saw the same with the Aztecs, with the Oltecs. More or less, all religions around the world are based on dominating. Where the Western cultures are based on, the Western religion are based on, okay, this is our area, we will defend this, but over there, that's the area of someone else. They have a right to defend theirs.
Okay, so it's a philosophy and an ideology, or maybe not an ideology, but an idea that is, by its nature, more subjectivist or relativist.
I wouldn't say relativist, but yes, subjectivist. Look at it from this way. Most religions are based on what people can see throughout their area in nature. and I've made this rant privately a long time ago. Western religions are based on wolves. We look at how wolves lived. We saw what they did, and we thought, that's good. And suddenly, our gods behave in the same way. Wolves, when they meet another pack, they might fight. They might also say, you know what, that's your border, this is our border. You stay on your side, we'll stay on our side. And they can actually travel alongside of each other for quite a bit of time without attacking each other. But it's also very possible that one group enters the area of another group and the other group says, no, this is our area. And then wolf group A goes, fuck you, this is my area. And they will fight.
Okay.
But they will not stay enemies. It's not about dominating. It's about consolidating. But it's also about accepting others.
Human societies, even the hunter-gathering societies, mimicked or were equivalent to how wolves actually hunted as well.
Yeah.
So.
But this is something you could see in Europe. In Europe, we are very based on wolves.
But don't we sort of kind of have the same dominance hierarchies, though?
We do actually have the same dominance hierarchies as wolves.
Is it true? Is it true that Europe was the first area of the world to domesticate wolves?
Well,
I'm
not Europe.
100% sure, but probably actually. No, I thought.
No.
If we've had the most, if we've had the most contact with canines, then that might be understandable. That our religions, our tribal religions, are based more on.
I'm not sure. It
the
could have
Western Siberia.
well, which is Europe. I'm going to consider Western Siberia part of Europe.
Well, it's it's east of the Urals, with the actual European border sort of.
I don't believe in Eurasia.
Obviously, of course, I know, but you see what I mean? Yes.
No, but you're right. But if we, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt again because I didn't really finish my point. Funny enough, because
I'm sorry.
You know me, I'm long-winded. I'm sorry. If we look at Europe, we have a lot of wolves. Now, if we look at Africa, and if we look at the Middle East, what are the major predatory animals people see there?
The Middle East now
Felines, I guess.
The Middle East now doesn't have
ISIS.
ISIS. No, but back
exactly,
in the days, they were lions.
Yeah.
Now, what does a lion do when he meets a lion that's not part of his pack? Just about always. It attacks, it kills. There is no common ground. There is no, okay, that's your place, this is my place. As soon as they meet, they will fight. Now, this is the difference between...
Yeah, and I'll go even further than that. In lion prides, there's not even the concept of adoption.
Nope.
There's not even the pretense of possession. What I mean is, a lion
there is possession.
Who takes over a new pride will kill any
the
cub
youngs.
that isn't his.
Yes, but there is possession. But this is the thing about religions. Keep in mind that when I talk about most religions are based on what people recognize within nature. Now, in Europe, we see wolves, we see bears, we see the way they interact. They are fierce animals, but they can have peace. They can actually be next to each other without attacking each other. We also see, for example, in Africa and in the Middle East at the time, we see lions. They do not have the same behavior. People mimic the behavior of what they see in nature. Look at, for example, in New Guinea, where you had orangutans as primary hunter and gathering animals.
No.
Yeah, they were.
No,
Well,
not
apes.
New Guinea. No. Orangutans are Indonesia, Java,
Yeah.
Borneo. So not New Guinea.
I thought New Guinea too. Okay, sorry.
No. New Guinea is south of the Sahel line. They have marsupials.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
God, I'm sorry about being.
No. I can be wrong, and I need to admit it when I am. So thank you.
If I ever do a video on Christianity, or rather Western religion versus Middle Eastern religion, it will be called The Wolf and the Lion.
Yes. But if you look at different religions, because this is why I brought up, I was wrong in New Guinea. I should have said Indonesia.
Yeah,
There you have apes. If you look at the behavior of apes, you will see humanity shapes their religions and their society based on how apes behave. If we look in, for example, what we now call Latin America, there are hunter animals, there are snakes. Religion and society is based on what they pick out of their nature there. And wolves, there were wolves in the UK.
Mhm.
Actually, quite
Australia's weird. They quote unquote, they venerated the rainbow serpent, and the biggest snake in Australia is a python that's not that. It's about 3-4 meters long. You have the Asian serpents, which are much larger.
Yeah, but Australia is a little bit of a weird
Yeah,
one out
it's-
there
yeah,
anyway,
it's-
because
it's different,
just
yeah.
about everything in nature there will kill you. But this is the thing, though. If you look at Aborigine culture, they have a lot of rules, but they don't really fight for possession.
And the reason for that is
Hunter-gathering
really
societies.
a lack of there's abundance of food in
No.
places like Amazon.
No.
Because of that, there's no competition and there's very little technological or societal advancement.
Because
the-
they'd never adopted agriculture.
They
Yeah,
never
but-
had to adopt agriculture, and
But
they,
they
never
didn't- they
needed to
never- they
advance,
never-
which is
they-
why
there
they
was-
were
there's
still
two
tribal
reasons.
when Europe found them.
There is two reasons
But-
why they never adopted agriculture. Because
They
if we
didn't
look-
want to. They were in contact with agriculture from especially in the North Australia, where they had contact with New Guinea, which had adopted agriculture.
Yeah, but there was no
Sorry,
there was
that-
no real need for it, and it didn't fit with their animal surrounding.
Food was plentiful enough that they didn't require it.
No, there's more to it whether food was plentiful. If we look at, for example, going back to the animal analogy,
Yeah.
if we look at wolves, they aren't as nomadic as people like to think. They are rather tied to an area. So people started tying themselves to an area. Agriculture became a necessity. But if we look at New Guinea, there I go again, sorry. If we look at Australia, the Aborigines did travel a little bit. But if we look at the more dangerous animals there, the more feral animals there aren't that many.
Oh, they were.
Do you think that Western Europeans looked at the way that wolf packs behaved and said consciously, "Hey, let's do that"?
I'm not sure if it was consciously, but yes.
It wasn't. It wasn't unconscious. They saw a mirror image of their society going back
You know
to hunter gathering. Yeah,
You know
going
what-
back.
Yeah. I think I get it. They would have followed. They would have probably followed the wolves around and developed some kind of mutually beneficial relationship because the wolves were better trackers.
Well, that's true when it comes to how wolves got domesticated. But even not all wolves were domesticated, and people still looked at wolves.
Yes, but they still would have followed them around, and that's how they came to learn so much about wolves. And,
Oh yeah, definitely.
mimicked the way that wolves behaved.
But we're talking about periods well before we had any religion. We're talking about well before there was a Greek society and a Nordic society.
We're
We're talking about thousands of years before the year zero.
Yeah, we're talking around the 5 digits.
Well, maybe, yeah. And with certain concepts, religion came and tradition came, because religion and tradition are basically the same thing.
Custom.
Yes.
Well, it still all falls under culture. Everything that you can transmit to your offspring is culture. That is not biological.
Yeah, all memes are culture.
They are. They honestly are. Yeah.
I wasn't saying that as a joke. Well, maybe
No,
maybe
exactly.
witty, but it's true.
It is, yeah, exactly.
Anyway, sorry guys, I'm going to interrupt because I love our little talk. Rin, this was your subject.
Now,
Are you
Rin,
still there?
your turn.
Okay. No, Rin?
Rin.
Rin. Okay, I'm sorry. You know what? Out of the four of the remaining four of us, how much of it still makes sense, Smirkus?
Well, I think it makes a lot of sense, man. Mimicking your surroundings. Like if you see that wolves have a bigger, or are better at hunting, then naturally you're gonna do that as well. And when you put it further up in the culture, because
it's more than just how we hunt. It's also how we take care of our own, how we take care of our weak.
And like I've said,
that's a new concept, but we've did it forever.
Like what I've said about bullying in one of our after streams, like don't teach them about wolves, the Omega, and the rest of the pack.
Yeah, and the Alpha, obviously.
Like kind of make it so that you fuck with the bullied kid a little bit, but as soon as somebody touches him, you fuck everyone else up.
Yep. Because he's our kid. He's our Omega. And that's the thing, though. And a lot of people like to think that socialism is a relatively new concept, even though Christianity is based on socialism.
Really?
Yeah.
No,
Yes, it was. I'm sorry. You can say it's not. Jesus talked about how you need to take care of the weak.
Jesus doesn't really. The philosophy of Jesus didn't have a lot to do with Christianity until the 15th century.
It had nothing to do with Christianity, but people make it about it. But it's
Christianity had more to do with Stoic virtue ethics.
Also, yes, but it depends on which form of Christianity you look at.
I'm thinking of the Catholics.
Yes.
When I think of Christianity, the Catholics come to mind first because I consider them the main branch of Christianity, to be honest.
But if we look at how religions in general, and not just Christianity, because in all fairness, if we look at Islam, there are the 5 pillars. It's also basically how we need to take care of our poor. It's also about dominance, but it's also about taking care of the poor of our in-group.
Yep.
But taking care of the poor isn't necessarily socialistic. Even capitalism says we need to take care of the poor by giving them jobs.
And there you have it. That's the quarter that I needed to fall.
That's not socialism, though.
But a lot of people seem to think it is. Hell, talk to any university professor at this point in time. How many of them will tell you that capitalism is the system that mostly expanded on things like healthcare and psychological care, together with Christianity, with Catholicism, one of the two. Most people will totally forget that, but the whole idea of psychological healthcare and emotional healthcare and financial healthcare is a capitalistic, Catholic endeavor in the modern Western world. Sorry.
But isn't also the social healthcare to get you to function in society so you can work again and shit?
Yeah. So basically, it's very how do you call it? Self-serving. I want you to be better because once you're better, you can start working again, which is good for you, but it's also good for society.
No.
Now,
and it's also, and in the minds of some people would say it's also good for me. I'm going to help you because it's good for me.
But
possibly
that's. I mean, no good.
I mean, if somebody was a feudal lord, they would have said something like that. Or in modern times, that would be that would be most people because of liberalism. A lot of the middle class and lower class population today now has the mindset of what a feudal lord would have had 1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
How does this benefit me?
But isn't that the whole concept of society? We do things because it's beneficial for us all.
Well, not consciously, not in medieval society. That was not the case.
Oh, but you're wrong. Even in medieval society, that was the case.
Huh.
We like to think how people in medieval societies had it so bad once they are, for example, on the lowest ranks of. No, let me finish. Well, when they're on the lowest ranks of society, people like to think people had it bad. But even back in those days, even the lowliest serfs still had a say. They didn't have a right to vote, but most leaders would listen to their serfs.
I don't think that you might be right, but I don't think most of them would have said anything. I think most of them were content with the life that they had.
That's the thing. That's the thing that people want you to believe now. Hell, we get told on how bad life was back then. There is this.
I don't think it was bad. I don't think life as a serf. I don't think people thought that life as a serf was bad because they were taught if they did their work, they would go to heaven.
No, there was more to it. Do you know why there are certain holidays? Holidays that you will get a day off nowadays.
Well, considering the fact that most of our holidays are in winter, they're probably to keep the people happy.
There's more to it, but that's part of it. But you know what used to be the case with holidays in medieval societies, and pre-medieval societies as well. The wealthy.
I don't think there was a purpose to them. At least
Yeah,
not
there
a
was.
purpose. They would have had. They would have been, community get-togethers, but the community pretty much knew each other.
They were community get-togethers paid by the rich to enjoy the poor. Food would be there for them. Entertainment would be there for them. Well, those two mostly. And it was paid for by the rich. They did not have to pay for it themselves. The poor were kept, in a way, happy.
Yes.
We don't do that anymore, obviously. Now we just say, oh, you have a free day, so shut the fuck up. But
so everything is more individualistic now.
But that was the concept. Any leader, no matter how good he was, could only be a leader of people who are willing to follow him. So trust me, leaders in that day, they were a lot nicer to their followings than leaders are now, because now there are so many people that give a fuck.
Okay. Sure. Okay. I think I get what you're meaning.
So the idea that people have it so much better now than they had it then, it's just.
Well, I did not say that. Never have I thought that people have it better today than they did back then, because happiness is really, well, it's based on mindset. There's nothing objectively that makes people happy, except being given their physiological needs, having their physiological needs being met. But besides that, what determines what makes people happy is based on one's own personality and their personal psychology.
True.
And I think a lot of that has to do with education. People today demand so much more than they used to. Because they're educated to say, this is good, you should want this. And so they decide, I want this, and if I don't have it, I will be sad.
But that's not education. That's doctrination.
I don't recognize a difference between the two.
Okay. Then I'm going to start with what education used to be. And we're going to go back even to...
It used to be the church.
No, actually before that, before the church, because schools wasn't something churches brought up. Churches only taught those within the clergy that would stay within the clergy. I forgot which one, but one of the Frankish kings made school mandatory for kids. Basically also telling them kids are not to work till a certain age, but they had to go to school till a certain age, where they would learn simple things like arithmetics, reading and writing if possible, and that's it. Before that, you had the guild system where kids would go somewhere to learn a trade. With the adding of the schools that the Frankish king brought up, the guild system didn't disappear, by the way. But people were taught simple things. This is how you read. This is how you do math. This is how you build stuff. you were taught how. You were not taught how to think. You were taught to think. Schools nowadays tell you how to think, but not to think. Now, this is something that we've seen happening, let's say, since the 50s.
Going back even further than that, your education consisted of how to hunt, how to gather, how to clean corpses, how to procure.
But that was an education you would get throughout life. That wasn't really going to school.
Yeah, that's true.
People how to think has it has more to do with Bacon than it does to post-war, post-World War II ideas. It has more to do with Baconian science, because modern science comes from basically Francis Bacon.
But it also has a lot to do with the Frankfurt School of Thought
and Newton. The Frankfurt School of Thought is a lot more recent.
I know, but our schooling system got fucked up rather recent.
Bacon's ideas became very popular in the 19th century. The idea of teaching people.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the 19th century. I'm talking about the 20th century, 1950.
Well, teaching people how to think has existed for centuries. It is not a new thing in the 20th century.
The problem isn't that teaching people how to think is a new thing. The problem is that you have to think in a certain way.
Which the scientific method is telling people, no, you have to think in a certain way. You have to do things in this order if you want to achieve fact.
Depends, though. I mean, you have to do it in a certain way to achieve a certain goal.
A goal that we tell you is a proper goal.
No, because now you're talking about science, not about the average person.
Yes, but the average person is taught science in school, and the scientific.
Not back then.
The scientific method is a way to remove all of the human element from anything that you're trying to investigate.
Exactly, and that's the way of teaching people how to think.
You're making one simple mistake. People, before the 20th century, people went to school to learn certain skills, not to learn how to think, because that's something that came with higher education, definitely, and later education. But primary education wasn't about that. You were considered dumb. I mean, okay, you were allowed to read and do mathematics, but you were still considered dumb. So your concept didn't matter. And because that's the basis that people came from, when they went into higher education, they were still cynical. If they went into higher education, they were still cynical. They were still, how do you call it? Skeptic, if you want. But nowadays, from an early age, we teach our children how to think, what to think, but not to think freely anymore. So this is what we see growing up. This is what we see in our higher education too. There is a thought bias. Yes, there is always going to be a thought bias, but now it's being fed into children, and it never happened before the 20th century. Because thought was something, scientific thought was something that came at a later age at higher education. But now we already have children thinking in a certain way, even though they have no clue what they're thinking on.
Right. So for a long time, it was only people in universities. For hundreds of years, from the 1700s onward, it was people in universities.
No, even before the 1700s. There have been universities as far back as the 1400s, I think.
Well, yeah. If you wanted, if we're talking about universities telling people how to think, that has existed since the West brought universities back in the 9th century in France.
But you had different schools of thought within universities, so they would.
After a while, you did. You're right. You had the in the 10th century and the 11th century, you had the nominalist school of thought and the realist school of thought, and then you had conceptualism in the 11th century. So you're right.
And people would combat each other's concepts. If you come up with a concept that isn't mine, we would combat ideologically. Don't get me wrong, we wouldn't fight, but we would contest each other's concepts.
12th century, 1100s. I'm sorry, was conceptual.
Well, even beyond that, though. But people started going to universities out of they were already having certain thoughts. They were already thinking that they could achieve. They were pushed by family members, whatever. But they went in there with a scope that was from them. Their early upbringings didn't indoctrinate them in the same way indoctrination is happening now. And what's the difference? Well, the difference is you have 100 people in the Middle Ages going to higher education, and 25 of them will have been indoctrinated in this concept, 50 will be indoctrinated in that concept, and 25 in that one. It would have been more, I know. But you have already contradicting ideas meshing together.
There's a problem there. You have in the arguments between say nominalism and realism, you have basically what is differences in logical thinking, differences in the way that people reasoned, and most of the issues had to do with the way that human language is constructed, and basically you had an argument that wasn't really worth a great deal, argument that wasn't really worthwhile in the grand scheme of things. And you have the same thing in universities today. Most people are indoctrinated to believe in the general idea of progressivism, social progressivism. There are arguments within social progressivism, but the arguments don't really amount to much.
I think you're missing the numbers game in this one. How many numbers of people came to universities with certain precepts and certain preconceived notions? And how many of them, percentage-wise, do now?
A lot more now than back then. In fact, I would say that in the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th century, people received very little to no education prior to when they went to university. They normally came from rich families, and any education they would have came from private tutors.
Yes. So you had the different people with different ideas coming together. What we see now is a lot of people which have been indoctrinated in certain concepts, continuing the indoctrination of certain concepts. So far that we now have scientific papers claiming biological impossibilities as truth.
Each day
this is something
further away from God.
Well, there is that. I don't care about religion on that, but this is where Western culture is derailing because of ideological indoctrination, which starts with our youth. Yep. This is something religions have been trying to do for the longest time, and now it's being done by our education system.
Well, I think that progressivism and the left-wing social progressivism kind of acts as a pseudo-religion.
Well, everything acts like a pseudo-religion, to be honest, because that's how humans are.
I mean, there's no God, so I don't know if you can call it a religion, but
no, you can call it a philosophy.
Yeah, in that sense, if I consider Buddhism to be a religion, so I don't see why I should not consider communism, for example, to be a religion, or the Frankfurt style liberalism to be a religion, or even libertarianism, the kind of anarcho-capitalism that people believe in. Anarcho-capitalists and socialists do believe in metaphysical constructs that they create inside their minds, or the ideology creates inside their minds.
Yeah.
They believe in things like natural human rights, which
is bullshit.
There's absolutely nothing in natural science that could lead you to the conclusion that Homo sapiens are endowed with natural inalienable rights. It comes from law. It comes from convention.
It comes from humans.
Yep.
It's bullshit that we made up. It's good bullshit, but it is bullshit.
Yeah, it's bullshit. I had a small discussion with that on Minds with someone who, in the end, just ignored me and blocked me and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it was kind of funny because Well, according to him, natural rights were about what is right, and therefore they're natural. And I'm like, okay, then define natural for me. And you do understand that there's a difference between something that is nice and therefore right to do, or something that is legal and therefore right to do. Your right to do. Which was basically the question that got me in ignore.
I've been talking about this with my Christian friends, and the question that I've been mulling around in my head is, if something is bullshit, but it works, should we believe it, or should we not believe it, but should we use it, and should we teach it to people? Human rights is a bullshit concept. There's nothing in nature that supports it, but
Yes.
it seems to be a good idea.
Yes.
So should
Yes.
we teach it to people even though it's bullshit?
No, it's not. It's not bullshit. It's not natural, but it's not bullshit. It's a concept that works.
Guys, I'm going to bed. See
I
you.
consider
See you later,
bullshit.
Carlos. Thanks for
Goodbye,
coming,
Carlos.
mate.
No worries. See you,
Goodbye,
guys.
Carlos.
Sleep well, mate.
Thank you for coming. Well, when I say bullshit, I mean it's not factually correct. It doesn't factually exist. It's it is a social construct. I hate using that, but it is a social construct.
Well, you know, I don't hate using the word social construct. It's the problem that people seem to forget what social construct means.
yeah, I know. It's overused.
Yeah, everything is
why
a
I'm-
social construct.
I'm apprehensive about using it.
Yeah, I understand you on that one, though. I do. The
But
thing-
it is a social construct, but it is a social construct that actually it isn't final, but it has the probability of working for human societies in general.
it has worked for human society in general for the longest time. Well,
So should we
sometimes.
teach it to people even though it's nonsensical from a truth standpoint,
No,
from a
no.
fact standpoint?
it is sensical. It's not natural, but it is sensical. How do you see it as nonsensical if it's working?
It's nonsensical from a factual standpoint.
How is it not factual from a factual standpoint?
It's nonsensical from fact because it's not factual. It's not true. It's something that we created.
But if
Like
if it is
just like God is something that we created. It has no basis in natural science. It has no basis in fact.
okay,
You know?
okay, no, I understand. So let's take a simple example. You are not to steal. We, as a society, find that rule important. Is that rule sensical?
From a utilitarian standpoint, I think it is.
From any point of view you want to bring it.
No, not from every point of view.
Okay, so in which situation thou shalt not steal? I like using thou, but in what sense thou shalt not steal is nonsensical?
From a factual standpoint.
Okay, is that
But the fact
correct?
that there is no God, there is no law in
No, no,
nature.
no. I'm not talking about God. I'm not talking about law in nature. And there is a law in nature now because I brought it, and with me all the other people.
Yeah.
What?
As soon as there are enough people to say thou shalt not steal, you cannot claim it's nonsensical anymore because a lot of people adhere to this rule. For these people,
so,
it is
well,
true.
So it's a mob rule, basically. It's majority rule.
Maybe, yeah, sure, why not?
Basically, what is right is what the majority says is right.
Maybe,
What is
yes.
sensical is what the majority says is sensical. So it's a subjectivist kind of thing. I see where you're going with that.
But that's the thing, though. All interaction with other humans is subjectical. All. There is no
Yes.
there is no exception to it. Now, what you want to have is a set of social constructs, if you wish, that are well defined, carried by as many people as possible, so that everyone will feel that this is something that encompasses their life as well. Now, for example, do I have the right to tell you that you're not allowed to eat bacon. It's a simple example. I'm sorry of the religious.
If I would say if the majority of people around me said I don't have the right to eat bacon, then I wouldn't have the right to eat bacon. Basically, it becomes
No.
you're not
That's not
allowed
the,
to eat bacon.
that's not the question I asked. The question I asked is, do I have the right to tell you not to eat bacon?
What do you mean by the right?
Is there a reason for me to tell you not to eat bacon?
Perhaps you don't want people to eat bacon.
Well, what I want is irrelevant. So there's a second part to it. All the rules that we make up have to serve a different purpose than I want. For example, if we go back to the rule, thou shalt not steal, this is something most people feel is a no-brainer. Well, of course you shouldn't steal, because
Until you're starving,
well,
then stealing becomes a very nice option.
true that. But
No, you know what? You know what it is? Nobody wants to be stolen from.
And that's why the rule thou shalt not steal comes from. But as Smirkus so rightfully points out, unless you're starving, because then you need to do something.
Well, starving and broke in this society.
Oh, fair enough. Funny enough, the Catholic Church already said, well, if you're broke and you can't eat, then God doesn't mind you stealing a loaf of bread. Which is funny, but it also makes sense, because the social concept of people is, yeah, you shouldn't steal, but you shouldn't die of hunger either.
Dying of hunger would be worse than stealing.
Yep.
Unnecessary death is generally considered worse than petty thievery.
Yes. Again, these are social constructs carried by the majority of people. So now I come back to my rule of, are you allowed to eat bacon? Because the concept of the reason why you can't eat bacon in religion, or at least in the one God religion of Abrahamic religions, is because of a health issue. Pork meat doesn't keep well in the heat.
That's right.
So eating pork meat can make you sick and can cause you to die.
Yes, I did read something about that at the time at the time that the Hebrew Bible and the Islamic Quran were being written. There were not very good ways to keep. There were not very good ways to keep pork.
Which is kind of funny, because if we then go back to the Western world, could we keep pork? Yes, we could.
Salted meat. Yeah, you would keep it in salt.
So what was one of the first rules that Christianity had to lose in the Western world?
The ability to eat pork. That's amazing.
Because it wasn't carried by the populace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's another example of it's a very good example of Christianity being shaped by the culture, not the culture being shaped by the faith.
So, but does it also make sense that there is more to rules than it's just a social construct, even though it is just a social construct?
Yeah, it is a social construct, and it is also convention, and so, it is basically it is the combination of personal opinion and what one has been taught.
There is even a third part of it, because as you said earlier, it's mob rules, in which I have to admit you are right, but it's mob rules on consensus.
Yes,
so it's a rule we make up because we feel it's a rule that helps us. If it's a rule that we don't care about, then it will not be carried by the populace. The consensus,
the legalization of minor drugs in the Netherlands.
Perfect example. Society doesn't feel there is the need for a war on drugs. Therefore, we adjust the way we look at it, and the problem more or less disappears.
I see. Okay.
So that it's a social construct in itself means nothing. Does it have value for the society? Does it have value for the people? If the answer to that is yes, then it is, whether it's conceptual or not, at the same time, more than just conceptual. It becomes inherent in the culture.
Right. Okay, then.
So if we look at religion, and what religion has done to the Western world, and the Western world itself, and what it has done to religion, we can see there's a strong interaction. But the strongest part of the two, if we look at how strong is religion to culture and how strong is culture to religion, we can clearly see that the strongest of these two is culture, not religion. And this is why the Western world has such a problem with, for example, Islam.
Yes, and it is true that Islam culturally is very different than it was 1,000 years ago. Islam used to be very Aristotelian. That is a fact.
So how about...
And that changed over the past 1,000 years.
If we look at Islam, if we look... I've tried to explain how culture and religion battled for dominance more or less in the way we see it now in the Western world. And I basically surmised that culture is the dominant one and religion is the following. If we look at the Islam, the submissive one, if you want, yes. If we look at Islam and the cultures where Islam comes in, which one is the dominant one and which one is the submissive one?
It's probably that Islam is the dominant one.
In practice, I would say Islam is the dominant one because Islam likes to spread itself in a different way than Christianity does. Because Islam likes to spread itself through warfare. It propagates itself via domination. And so Islam is the more dominant.
And if you do not adhere...
Over culture.
Yes, and if you do not adhere to Islamic rules will destroy your culture.
So does this also tie back to the wolf and cat thing? Or not?
This goes back to the wolf and the lion, yes. Because what does a wolf do once he... because you have wolves that get pushed out of a pack. You have lone wolves. Sometimes lone wolves stay lone wolves. Sometimes lone wolves meet a new pack and they can become part of that pack. Not as an alpha, but they can become part of that pack.
Yeah.
Do we see the same thing with lion and prides?
Nope.
Does my analogy still make sense then?
Yeah. I will just ask for clarification.
Now feel free to shoot holes in this. I mean, I've been thinking about this for quite a few times. Because I really think that religion and culture are two different things, but they are interacted with each other. And the Western culture is a culture of inclusivity. And that's basically our main problem now, because if we look at a lot of strife the Western world is in, not all, of course not all, hashtag not all, but a lot of strife we are in is a culture clash.
Yeah.
You know what you were talking about is that you were talking about it kind of applies to currency as well, now that I think about it, because currency is, well, the worth of currency is based on consensus.
Yes.
Take and just because it's a common example, the American dollar or the euro. If people, the euro is probably going to be a better example. If everybody who used the euro today suddenly decided tomorrow that the euro was no longer worth anything, then the euro would no longer be worth anything.
Yes.
And so the value of the currency itself is determined by consensus. It's determined by the opinion of those who use it.
Yes.
The worth is determined by those who use it, and it's the same for very much the same for law. That was just another example of that.
But how many people are adequately versed in economics to actually appreciate or can decide the value of a currency, though?
Well, that's the thing, though.
Sometimes I just feel like it's being shoved down our throats, and we just accept, okay, now it's worth this.
Well, basically, it's if you want the dollar to continue to be worth something, it's in your best interest to see that everybody finds it worth something.
Yeah.
Because if people stop finding it worthwhile and people start going back to, I don't know, barter, or Bitcoin or something, then the dollar won't be worth as much because less people have faith in it. I mean, that's the entire idea behind capitalism, really, is the idea that everybody can find value in this piece of paper, and everybody pretends that it has value. And if everybody stopped pretending, it would no longer have value.
Yeah.
Yes. But it goes, again, here I go again with it goes one further. Before we used currency, it was based on the gold standard.
Yeah.
What they did...
Gold is the same because gold doesn't have intrinsic value either.
Indeed, they just changed one concept for another concept.
And to be
But
honest, gold. I don't even know why we've started valuing gold to begin with, because it's
useless
mostly
metal.
It's a useless piece of junk.
It's a useless metal.
You can't even make reliable tools out of it.
It looks pretty though.
Actually, if we look at it, it looks pretty. Viking cultures
I think the idea
use
of gold,
silver rather than gold because they like the look of silver more.
I think gold ended up becoming the gold standard, as we call it. I think that cropped up because gold can't be used for very much else, and it existed in just the right quantity to be useful as a currency.
Yeah. Well, I mean, certain cultures use shells.
No.
So it's only what people would pick.
You're telling me that there are cultures in which money can just wash up on the beach?
Well, there were cultures where that was absolutely the case, yes.
Damn.
It's
Their
whatever you decide the value is.
their economies must have been relatively bad.
No, but they were, how do you say? They weren't static.
I mean, if there was some kind of great die-off of sea life on the coast, that's terrible and afflicting.
Yeah.
That all comes back to the what do you value as a society, I guess.
Yes. And indeed, Malachite money makes trade easier. Gold made trade easier. Paper money made trade easier. Hell, even the Templars used to use paper money. They didn't call it paper money at the time. They used to call it contracts, but it's the same thing. So
yeah, I think note was always a term that's been in use for a long time.
it could be, yeah.
As in
So,
banknotes.
If we recognize all these cultural things that are created by concepts created by people, how can you then say, okay, they're not real?
Well, I suppose if it's an idea, it isn't real in the same way that a shell is real or a microphone. But what I think of when I think of real, I think of things that have tangible existence, things that exist within the material universe.
Okay.
Things that
So-
take one of the three states of matter, or four if you count plasma, and can theoretically be sensed. That's what's real to me. And so
Okay.
ideas aren't real unless you consider, the electric signals that make up brain activity as the tangible existence of thought.
Well,
If-
that
if-
is actually a tangible existence of thought. I mean, if you are looking at it empirical, yes, that is the tangible, noticeable, and recordable.
I think we just debunked rationalism.
Yes, but rationalism is bullshit. Because if you can rationalize everything, then nothing is real. If nothing is real, then nothing can be rationalized. It's, how do you call it? I can't find the word now. It's contradicting itself. And at the
Paradox.
paradox.
I mean, when you drown yourself in logic and reason, and you don't take any empiricism, any sense data into account, you will eventually drown yourself in contradictions.
Yes.
No.
So what we need, and this is what philosophy used to do, is find the right balance between empiricism and
Rational thought.
yes,
Basically,
concepts.
empiricism rationalism by itself cannot work because of what we just stated.
Yes.
Empiricism in and of itself cannot work because if you
Well-
just have empiricism, you're not really a thinking
The
human
thing is-
brain. You're more like a computer
Indeed,
who's not
the thing
capable
with
of independent
empiricism,
thought.
empiricism can work.
An example of a human being who would be a complete empiricist would be somebody who was in a persistent vegetative state.
Yes.
You know, they're taking in information, but they're not doing anything with it.
Well, they don't need to do anything with it because taking in information is the main thing. And that's the thing. If we go pure empirical, we are losing ourselves. If we take empiricism completely out of the concept, we are also losing ourselves. We need a balance of rationalism and empiric information. I want to say empiricism, but that's not
Yeah.
real.
That's also the problem that they are coming across with artificial intelligence, more or less. They can see you can make a robot that sees something, but they, at this point in time anyway, cannot interpret it in the same way that we can. You know.
Well, they can't give it meaning.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
That's the difference between rationalism and empiricism. One is the measurement of things, the other one is giving meaning to things. We need both. If one of the two becomes predominant, we lose both. Does that still make sense?
Could you maybe elaborate on that a little bit?
Once we go full rationalism and we ignore anything imperial, not imperial, fucking idiot.
I made that
Empiric.
exact. I made that exact mistake in one of my videos. You can go back and. I made a video on empiricism, and I accidentally called it imperialism.
That's pretty dumb of me. I'm sorry. But yeah, if we go full rational and we ignore all empiric data, then in the end, we start talking about how you can be a trans anything, but at the same time feel you can't be transracial because that's stupid. But, wait a second. If you can be trans anything, you can be transracial. Because
There are some people who believe that physical existence is a complete psychological fabrication. And that basically you can convince. Basically, they believe that the only reason you believe that the material world is real is because you have bullshitted yourself and convinced yourself that it is. And you could actually bullshit yourself into believing in any kind of existence.
yeah, people like that really need to learn that the Matrix was just a movie.
It's just,
Wow.
it's a never-ending row of red pills
Hmm.
and walking through doors.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, if we focus completely on rationalism, in the end, we will, well, basically fuck ourselves up. Which is what's happening now with feminism, Black Lives Matter, social justice warriors,
Right.
etc., etc., etc. They only go from a rational point of view. We want to be nice to everyone, therefore this is the best way to do it.
Sort of the science deniers in certain aspects.
I'm imagining now Neo walking to Morpheus and Morpheus saying you can take the blue pill or you can take the red pill. And he takes the red pill and then he walks out he walks out the door, and on the other side of the door there's Morpheus saying you can take the red pill or you can take the blue pill. And that just happens for eternity.
I'm sorry, Carlos. I have no idea what happened in the 14th and 13th century because you really have to tell me where. There's a lot of stuff happening in the 14th century around the world. But yeah, the thing is, if we go full empirical, we fail to understand what that empiric data proves. I mean, we know...
turned into computers.
So could you say that if you go full empirical, that
We become
kinda lose
autistic.
meaning?
We become autistic
No,
in a very real sense.
no, we don't even become autistic. Trust me, even autists aren't that empirical.
But then a bunch of stuff would just lose its meaning or something.
Well, yeah, like the concept of identity would lose all
Everything
meaning.
would lose its meaning.
Ah, okay. Then I fully understand.
Like you couldn't establish any sense of self if you were a complete empiricist. Any
Yeah.
sense that you are an individual who exists. That's something that comes from rational thought.
Malachite, 13th or 14th century Europe. Other places didn't matter. Fair enough, mate, but where in Europe? 13th century Spain was very different than 13th century Germany, for example. People seem to think that there is one Europe. There isn't. Well, there is now, but that concept is relatively new. Just like that there is no African, there is no European or no Asian. People seem to forget that countries are a larger part of our cultural shaping than anything else. And it's not so much the country, it's the cultures within the country that together make a country. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
I'm starting to lose it a little bit, I guess. Sorry. No, but I'm sorry. Malachite, great. Carlos, both of you, sorry. Great questions. I would love to go into this more, especially because we started about Christianity and culture. But now we're on about...
Western religion in its relation to Western culture.
Yes.
And I think we knocked this one out of the park, which is rare.
Not for me, it's not.
Well, in conversations that I'm in Google Hangouts, we rarely actually get to the point of the matter. We don't get to the meat of it, as it were.
No.
That
Well,
might be-
We have the meat and the potatoes.
and the potatoes and the veggies. Come on, you gotta eat your
Yes.
veggies.
Oh, no, potatoes are vegetables. Hey, I was able to convince somebody earlier that French fries are a vegetable because they technically are. They're not a healthy vegetable, but they are a vegetable. In the same way that guacamole is a fruit.
Yep. Tomato sauce on a pizza means that if you eat pizza, you eat fruit.
Yeah, you eat fruit.
Only in America.
You're eating fruit. You're drinking your milk, and you're getting your wheat.
Only in America.
And if it has pepperoni, you're getting meat too. It's
As
an
well,
entire
yep.
whole course. It's all your major food groups. Just don't put pineapple on it. For God's sake, don't put pineapple on your pizza.
Malachite, I'm sorry. Thoughts on Jordan Peterson's when concerning religion's place in culture. You know what? I followed Jordan Peterson. I'm looking at some of his stuff. I can't claim to know everything. So I have no idea what his thoughts on religion's place in culture is.
I'm still trying to get through the maps of meaning lectures of his.
He put up a lot of stuff, and don't get me wrong, I think the guy is a brilliant psychologist. And having said that, I do not 100% agree with him.
That's
But
fine.
I think that's the main thing. I would love to have a deep going talk with him. But yeah, YouTube channel of what, a few hundred subscribers. I don't think he has time for me. And I can understand that.
You can always message him, you know, and you never know.
Well, if I ever become popular, if I ever get into the thousands again, and then end up going beyond that, I promise if I ever get into a conversation with him, I will invite you.
Ah, thank you. I would love. The dude is amazing. Together with other psychologists, and this is saying something because I really think that the social sciences have been indoctrinated by neo-Marxism.
They have been
philosophies.
corrupted.
They have
You
very
should
much.
cleanse it with fire.
Well, I wouldn't do it with fire, but yes, anthropology is cool. More because thank you very much. I agree. I personally think anthropology is the main school of thought we should teach people because. Anyway, the thing is that what we see in social sciences now is that they have stopped being a science and started being an echo chamber. And even
Sciences?
the social sciences, which basically to me are not sciences, they're philosophies,
Yeah, they're
like sociology, psychology,
most of
anthropology.
it is pseudoscience, isn't it?
Sorry?
You remember phrenology? It has about the same factual worth as phrenology.
No, actually, I wouldn't put phrenology in the same line, to be honest. I mean,
What-
phrenology really is bad.
Phrenology is awful.
Yeah, so it doesn't
No
even
idea
get
what
to
it
the
is.
list according to
You-
me.
what is the rugby part of our brains?
Yeah, I wouldn't even be able to answer that. The stupid thing with phrenology is that for a time people actually believed it, and
There's a lot of bullshit when science was young, and even
Yeah.
today, there's a lot of bullshit science that people come to believe. Like for
Well-
example, the witch hunts. The witch hunts were an attempt to combine Baconian science and Christian fundamentalism,
yeah,
and it ended up with terrible effects because guess what? Christianity and science don't mix well.
no, indeed. Well,
I mean, people
it
spent a
depends.
lot of time. People wasted a lot of time trying to come up with ways of scientifically discovering whether somebody was a witch.
Yeah, but at the same time, science as we know it came to Europe partly because of religion. Because let's not forget that, especially in Europe, part of the science we had came from the Catholic Church. In truth, it was to prove there's a God. In reality, they proved there isn't. But that's basically where it comes from. But phrenology is especially stupid, and at the same time, I can understand it. I mean, it's the same that back in the Middle Ages, they believed that bleeding someone would cure them from illnesses.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
rebalancing their humors.
Yes.
Oh man, all those insane asylum practices in the 40s and 50s.
Well, Carlos, psychology doesn't seem to be a bastion either, to be honest. I mean, if we look at Jordan Peterson, let's not forget that the guy, even though he's a tenured professor, is a lone wolf when it comes to this struggle. Most psychologists in Canada are not at his beck and call.
Yeah, isn't there also a bunch of fear going around these days on those kind of campuses?
Probably.
Like, oh my God, if I say the wrong thing, somebody will get their peepees hurt, and I'm gonna get backlash.
Probably. But we have the Godfather, indeed. But we see the same in the Netherlands, to be honest.
Oh really?
Yeah, we do.
I'd like to hear more about that.
Well, it's very difficult to give very concrete evidences. But if I read a sociology research paper that talks about how gender is assigned, then I already know enough of that research paper. I don't need to read the rest.
We all heard the tale a million times by now.
And it's actually, even in the Netherlands, we hear this stuff. It's a problem. It really is. I'm sorry. I'm really thinking about what to talk about next.
Oh, that reminds me, St. Clair, I had a question for you about the whole anarchy capitalism or the anarchy communism thing.
Ooh.
Oh, he's gone.
Well, in that case, Malachite, is cultural Marxism and postmodernism worse in Europe than here in North America? And the simple answer is yes.
Really?
Yes, it is. In America, politics isn't as much affected by postmodernism as it is in Europe. Look at the strife you have within American states and even in American Congress about what to do with the Muslims. Where in Europe, the answer is already open the gates and let them in.
Oh, like that. Okay.
So cultural Marxism and postmodernism fucked up Europe way worse than America. I can only hope America learns from us and we will pick up our own slack because it's not all lost yet. But yeah, it's way worse in Europe than it is in America. Don't forget that in Europe, we haven't had a week yet without a terror attack.
Oh, yeah, I don't really follow the news that much. I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't even make the news anymore half of the time.
Yeah, it seems after a while you also kind of get desensitized to.
Yeah, you do, which is a problem, to be honest.
It's like another one. We'll never learn.
Yep.
So why worry about it? It just fucked up. But, yeah.
The universities themselves are disciplined depending on the studies, Malachite. Social studies are crap all around the world. There is no point of no return, to be honest, Captain. I know people keep talking about it, but no. There is no point of no return. The question is, how much blood will it cost? And Carlos, your average law-abiding Muslim is not the problem. You're partly right. I would go one further. Your average law-abiding Muslim that is not in favor of Sharia is not the problem.
Yeah.
That last little bit, the Sharia bit, is very important. I mean, I have nothing against Muslims, but I do have a problem with Muslims who advocate Sharia because Sharia stands against everything the Western values encompasses. And yeah, we always do the hashtag not all. I'm sorry, Warped. I know.
Dude, I'm not going to say that ever again. The hashtag
What?
not all. Fuck.
Oh, well,
that.
I use it a lot.
I know. I never really use it, to be honest.
I'm going to respond to you again, Carlos. Sharia is man's law. No, actually, Sharia is the law, according to Islam, given to man by the God. By Allah. Well, whether you believe it or not, it makes no sense because, in all fairness, Sharia has been construed over the years and they've changed quite a bit. But yeah, okay. Now, Sharia is brought to man from Allah. Now, if that's the law you feel you need to obey and you need to promote, then we have a problem in the Western world. Because Sharia law goes just about against everything we are in favor of. Well, it's written by men. Yeah, obviously, everything is written by men. I've never seen any piece of paper written by God. And Islam really needed a Jesus figure. It can be said that Muhammad was the Jesus figure of Islam. But yeah, you're right. It is written long after as interpretation of the Quran, the Hadiths, and the Surah, Carlos. You're right. It's kind of funny, though, because if you look at it, the guys flying a plane into the World Trade Center were haram. And why were they haram? Because according to the Quran, Allah made the sea and the earth for people to travel on. Flying, therefore, is not granted by Allah. So you're doing something Allah didn't intend. Therefore, you're being haram. But I get sidetracked. I don't usually make videos on Islam because, well, I also have on my own channel. I also have kids from my work that can check my stuff, so I don't want to make it too.
I think I have to leave. I have family issues cropping up.
Oh, okay. Hey, I'm sorry your mate didn't make it, mate.
Well, I know that he's busy, and I know what the situation is, so it's okay. It's just fine. Although he is a Christian, so his insight would have been nice.
Yes, it would have been.
I mean,
well.
he's only a moderate Christian, but still a Christian. Okay. Thank you for inviting me, Modwayne. I will talk to you some other time. This was a great chat.
It was. Thank you for coming once again, and see you next time.
See you later, Smirkus and Rin.
Always a pleasure, mate.
1 second, because apparently Renita Chan wants to join.
Oh, Renita Chan. Okay, I will say hello to her and then I will leave.
Says he don't have access.
Okay, let me. I should be able to. I'm crap at this stuff. I really am. You're still waiting for Anita. Haha. We are more or less. No, wait a second. Wrong button. We are more or less
hanging around St. Clair. I had a question for you.
Okay, Smirkus.
Like, I always hear you about the whole anarcho whatever, and I'm always like, how can you tie anarchy to anything? That doesn't make sense.
To them, anarchy is defined as any kind of society or lack thereof, any kind of human group or people, any kind of human people in the absence of a government. And so basically not having a government would be an anarchy.
Okay.
So anarcho-capitalism would be a capitalist system with no government. I don't know how you would ever achieve that, but that's the theoretical idea.
Because to me, anarchy is always synonym to complete lawlessness and chaos, pretty much.
That's the common idea, but I think I think that requires more explanation than just the assertion.
Oh, okay.
I agree with it, but I agree with it that a society, a human society without a hierarchy would be a bad society to live in.
Yeah.
But it requires more explanation than just saying it.
Okay.
You know. Hi, Renita.
Hello.
Hey, Renita.
St. Clair actually stayed longer because you were coming on.
Aw, that's sweet.
Yeah, I wanted to say hi. How are you doing, Renita?
Okay, you said it now. Bugger off.
How you doing, friend?
Well, you know me. Buggery is always involved.
Hey, and Rin is back too. Hey, Rin.
Hi, Rin.
Hello.
Okay,
You've
I
gone
really
for a
have
while.
to go now. I'm going to bugger someone off.
Okay.
Have a good one, St. Clair. Thanks for coming again, mate. And
Have
I'll
a
see
good
you next
one.
time.
Take care, dude.
Be safe. Yeah.
Okay, anyone? Because actually, welcome for coming, Renita. We've been busy for quite a while, to be honest. We're more or less, I don't know, finishing up, I guess.
I see.
Do not
That's
get me
fine,
wrong.
you-
I mean, you're more than welcome to join.
Yay.
If you want, I can send you an invite for the next stream, which will be run by Smirkus, which will be about psychedelic. Actually, Smirkus, you tell it.
I thought, I know a little bit about drugs and stuff, and we never really talked about it, so I figured we could talk about that.
Psychedelic drugs.
Oh, I can already hear you have an opinion.
No, I mean, like, I don't have, like, a negative, like, oh, they're always bad. I mean, they're pretty dangerous. There are some that I know of that are
told you,
pretty
you have an
obscure. No, I mean, I actually know some that are pretty obscure.
Well, then you should join us as well. And yes, Captain, you are more than welcome to join in on that as well.
Who are you talking to?
Captain and Stuff and Thingies on the chat. I'm also trying
Okay.
to keep an eye on the chat. I don't always keep an eye on the chat. I'm crap at it, I know, but I'm trying. I'm improving, I hope. Maybe it's very, very, very little.
No, also about like the Schedule 1 list and that research is being stifled, but there's like positive messages coming from research that is being done at this moment. Which means that certain drugs shouldn't be on the Schedule 1 list.
Yeah,
So
some of them shouldn't.
that's pretty much the topic for the next one.
But, I mean, if you have something to say, and it seems that you do, you're more than welcome to join.
All right, I mean, like, I think that there should be, like, a lot of caution taken with some of these drugs because we don't know all of the effects yet.
Personally, I would say you have to be careful with all drugs, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Even if we
Heck,
do know the
even-
effects.
Even the drugs that I'm on, I have to be careful with them
Mm-hmm.
because it's like, well, you have to make sure that you don't get all of the things, like all of the stuff all over your hands because it's not good for you.
Mm-hmm.
It
What
just
are you
says
using?
wash your hands thoroughly after use.
What are you using?
It's called mercaptopurine, and it's for use for my Crohn's disease.
Okay. Also, they actually have something that works against Crohn.
Yeah, but it is an immunosuppressant.
Yeah, so it's not really working against Crohn. It's blocking the problems.
It's more like it's keeping your immune system from being like gavilantin off to go attack the rest of you.
Well,
That's
I
the way I
mean,
always put it.
it works, or at least a means to an end, I guess. But yeah, that's more like medicational drugs.
Well,
But
I
then
did-
again,
You made it about psychedelics. I just said drugs.
yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And in all fairness, most psychedelic drugs that we know now have been used throughout history as medication as well.
Oh yeah.
Not always to a very good effect. It didn't always work.
No. But that's the thing, though, and this is before I start doing that stream. Now, this is a lot of stuff to talk about because this is something I did say, and this is something I've often repeated in real life as well. It's not important which drugs you take; it's that you recognize what you're doing and treat it with the proper respect. Oh, that sounds so granddad. I'm not your granddad. I'm still right. But
Granddaddy Modwayne.
Granddad Modwayne.
Granddad Modwayne.
Yeah, no. I am
He's
dad.
not even a dad yet.
You know, I
you
am
are?
a dad. I am a dad. Yeah.
Oh,
I have
congrats.
a beautiful baby boy.
Oh,
he's,
that's sweet.
He's almost 2 years old now.
That's so cute.
Yes.
Oh, the terrible twos are coming, man.
Yeah. But
The terrible twos.
I have to admit, I never thought of myself as father material. Maybe because of the job I do. I mean, I see what can go wrong, etc., etc. I never thought of myself as father material, but I am happy with the little one, and he does make me proud.
Yay.
If I see how fast he picks up certain things, how strong he is, etc., etc., he does make me proud, and he's really, how would you say, explorative. He really wants to learn more. He's and he's not scared easily, which could be good, could be bad. See how that will develop. But yeah, he's amazing little Pike. It's kind of funny though because he's as I said, he's a little less than 2 years old, and he's already bigger than most kids I know that are older than him. He's growing like a wildfire.
Yeah. But that's probably a good thing that he isn't scared very easily.
Can be. Could also mean that he doesn't recognize threats. So yeah, that we have to see how that develops. I mean, The problem with me is that I've worked in psychiatry for a long time, so I tend to overanalyze things, which I shouldn't, because in all fairness, it's in my head, but most likely not in his. So yeah, there is that.
I mean, he is less than 2 years old.
Yes, indeed. And at the same time, it's okay for him to feel safe because, yeah, of course we're going to make him feel safe. We do everything we can to make him feel safe. So, doesn't mean that he doesn't recognize threat. It's maybe that's just me.
Over-analyzing.
Yes, thank you. I couldn't find the right word. So there is that. So yeah, but we're going to do the stream on drugs. Because drugs, not psychedelic drugs, my bad. And I said I can't do it next week because there won't be a stream that week. Sorry, everyone listening. Next week, no stream because Old Man is working. We can do it, however, on the 7th, if that is good for you, Smirkers.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Yeah,
Well-
I need something good before my prep.
What? Okay.
I
I'm
mean,
going
I'm
to
gonna
write
have
it
a
down.
procedure done, and the day before is not very fun. So
Okay.
the day before is the 7th. It's like, well, I need something fun, so then I can slog through that terrible thing.
Yeah.
Well,
You're always welcome to join, you know.
yeah, you are
Yay.
always welcome to join, even if the subject isn't drugs.
Hey, it's not always drugs.
It's not always drugs. It should
I've
be.
never taken illegal, but my mom's a nurse, so I have to come at it from a medical perspective sometimes.
Do you have to, or you want to?
It's like I think that's kind of a necessary thing
Why?
at this point because we don't know everything about the drugs yet. We don't know everything about even Tylenol, but we still need to have a look at it from what it can do to you.
Well, we know a lot about Tylenol, to be honest, and we do know something.
Yeah.
And it's not all good and it's not all bad. The funny thing is that we try to downplay the negative effects and increase the positive effects, which
Well,
isn't
It's
so
like,
good.
well, this can cause stomach bleeding. It's just like
Yeah,
with
putting this
with
down.
some drugs, we do it the other way around.
yeah. It's kind of
Yeah.
funny though. If you think about it, you have psychopharmatica, psychopharmacy. Yeah, I'm sorry, but medication for people with psychological illnesses. There is actually medication you give people who are suicidal. You will give them a certain medication, and as a side effect, it increases the chances of suicidal behavior.
Oh yeah, that one I always find is hilarious. Or
Yeah, me too.
antipsychotic drugs that can make you more psychotic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Versus psychosis, I should say. By the way.
yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of small stuff in medication that we need, and the thing is, I've worked with kids that use lithium. Now lithium is quite a strange and basically dangerous substance.
Oh, yeah.
So they have to get checked regularly to make sure that there is not too much lithium in their blood,
Yeah.
which is all good and well. Don't get me wrong there. But at the same time, it shows that we need to learn to think differently about the medication we use.
Mhm.
Because
Anyway.
all medication has a negative impact.
We should save all of this for the next time.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
completely
next
right.
week.
That talks about something else. So,
Before we start the stream on drugs right now.
yeah, you're completely right. Yeah, Malachite, I can feel your pain, mate. I wasn't, but I've worked with a lot of kids that were. Let's talk about something else. Rin, are you there? My dear Rin. Oh, this stream was because she wanted to talk to about something with Vergentrix, and St. Clair said, "Oh, I want to join." And this stream has been Smirkus, St. Clair, and me mostly. And Rin is just there, but she didn't say anything. Come
And
on,
Carlos for most of it.
No, Carlos was only pre-stream. Oh no, wait a second. You're right. He was part of the stream as well. Fucking hell, stupid me.
I haven't talked to Carlos in a long time, actually.
Oh, he did a great stream on his own channel yesterday. Oh,
Yay!
yeah, you should see it. If anthropology or archaeology is to your liking, yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, but it's kind of funny because yesterday he had a stream about a relatively new paper. Everyone seemed to think that hominids came from Africa, but they found hominids which predate the ones found in Africa by 200,000 years in Bulgaria and Greece.
Damn.
So that kind of makes the idea that hominids started there from, well, maybe not.
That is quite a significant discovery.
Yeah, it is. It really was a game changer. And I found it and I sent it to Carlos and I said, can you check it out? And he was like, oh yeah, this is going to be my stream tonight. So yeah, that was really, yeah. And yeah, anthropology and archaeology go together like chocolate and peanut butter. Now, I have a little, how do you call it? I enjoy anthropology. It's one of my hobbies. And Carlos is a great archaeologist. He really is.
Hi, Rin.
Hello.
Welcome back, Rin.
Thank you, Renita. Thank you. Thank you, Toaster. Sorry,
Where are you? You missed most of the stream, my dear.
Anyway, anthropology does seem cool. Have you heard of Peach? Not Peach Bailey, but there's a different YouTuber called Peach, and
Yes,
she was
I've heard of
studying. Yeah, she was studying anthropology. She made some great videos. One of her videos are race realism equals real racism, and she made 2 video responses to Hiruka. And they were really, really good. And she talked about anthropology a lot. And those are some really entertaining videos. Like, I rewatched them over and over and over again. It was
Well, maybe
amazing.
I should look into those then, because that might be fun. Hey, but in all fairness, Rin, where were you?
I was, can I just type it in side chat?
Okay, because I've been trying to call you. Call you. I asked you a few questions from time to time, but you weren't there, which is okay. You don't have to be, but I was thought something was wrong with you. Something happened.
Yeah, it's kind of like when there was a tornado in my state, and you guys, you and Octane were asking if I was okay.
Well, makes sense, doesn't it?
Because I was mostly quiet.
Yeah. Anyway, considering the time, I'm going to call it quits anyway, because it's half to midnight here, half to past midnight. Yeah, I'm sorry, Renita. I usually start sooner.
It's okay.
I start 2 hours before now. Can you be here in 2 weeks, 2 hours before now?
Well, yeah, that'd be about like almost 5:30 p.m. my time.
Is that doable for you?
Definitely.
Okay, well, put it in your agenda. Go on. Chop, chop.
I may be dressed like a woman from the 50s, but I'm not from the 50s.
You're not?
No.
Oh, from when are you?
Oh, the revelations.
Well, I was born in 1996, so I'm 20 years old, dude.
Oh. Yeah. What can I say?
I look old.
No. Listen, we've all been 20, some of us a little bit longer ago than others, and some of us are still ahead of 20. They will get there in the end.
I'm 28 years old.
How old are you?
28.
28. Yeah, I can remember that.
I'm a baby here.
And turned 31 last Sunday.
Oh, those were good days.
Happy birthday.
Oh, fucking hell. I'm trying to make myself sound old again. I should stop doing that.
But you are old.
Yes, but I shouldn't stop focusing on it too much.
You're
No,
as
I'm not.
old as you feel.
Yeah, I'm not that old. I'm only about 40-something. And I'll leave the something in the middle.
That's fine.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter much. So yeah, I was thinking about calling it quits for now. Captain, you're going to be here in 2 weeks as well. I hope you will be. Anyone else that wants to join in 2 weeks from now on the drug stream? And I don't like the drugs, but the drugs like me.
If I knew all the stuff that I know now, I would have done more shit that people said that I shouldn't.
Well, it's a balance thing. I mean, I always loved. I think it was Tom Petty, but I can't. No, it wasn't actually.
Hopefully.
I
Dude,
forgot.
just be here.
I
forgot
never
what it
really got into drugs for me, you know.
Sorry.
Like, yeah, I never really got into drugs, you know. Though I did take, you know, hydrocodone back in the day, but I mean, the only thing hydrocodone does is make you happy, and that's it.
Well,
Hmm.
that's Anyway, no, I'm going to start over again. I gotta stop that. I'm going to end the stream because old man and whatnot.
Last words.
Yeah, last words. Smirkus, you first, mate.
Well, I really enjoyed the conversation that we had. And actually learned something today. So thank you for that.
Okay. Renita, you're the last to join, but I'll give you the second last words.
All right. Thanks for inviting me. I had a great time, and hopefully we'll have another good time on this stream about drugs.
Hell yeah.
When I say puff, puff, pass, you better do it.
Rin, final gems.
Oh yeah, I posted a new video today. Unfortunately, I didn't get it. I mean, because you know, my heart goes out to the families of Manchester. But when I used to make my videos like a few days before I actually air it. But you know, so my videos it's about interbreeding, King Charles II, where I talk about King Charles II of Spain. Then I talk about women who get drunk throughout their pregnancy, and that's what my video was about of today. But tomorrow I'm going to talk about Manchester because to the victims. I think Onision made a video making fun of their deaths. I'm not sure, but I think Onision was making a video mocking and ridiculing them, like, you know, billions of people die before you, and we'll probably die in 2 hours, and you know, so many people die of cancer. So why do their deaths matter? And it's like, Onision, this is low even for you. Like, this is low even for you. Even I didn't think that he was so low to sink to that level. It's like, Onision, fuck you.
Well, actually, he wasn't talking about like mocking the people who died. He was mocking the people who were saying, "My heart goes out to the families." It's just like, dude, we know people die of cancer every day. We know people die from car accidents and heart attacks. But
Yeah,
this
I'm
is
going
a
to
bomb that was set off.
I'm going to interrupt you because, yes, people die from all sorts of things. The difference between an accident and an act is the real problem. So
Yeah,
comparing
one is preventable. Like, you can't prevent cancer. Even with cancer, we're donating. Cancer get lots of donations.
No.
Well,
Rin,
when
Rin, it's not even about whether it's preventable or not. One is an action by someone. Now, if I die in a car crash, I'll still be dead. And yes, it will still be terrible, but it will be an accident. If someone kills me, it's worse.
Yes, it's worse if somebody takes the life of another. I would like to see that person in jail. Like, it doesn't matter who it is, you know. Like even with what's his name, Dylan Roof. Even when Dylan Roof shot up a black church with 7 black people, I was like hoping he would get the death penalty. Or even with that guy who shot up Sandy Hook and killed all of those kids. I was glad he killed himself because, wow, he killed all those people. And when, you know, a terrorist bombs a place and kills so many people and injures others, you would want the person to be punished. Sure, it does not bring the dead back to life. However, you don't go around hurting people, because if these people do not get the death penalty, they'll just go do it again. But these suicides are suicide bombs, so they usually die in a
anyway, I am going to put an end to this because, in all fairness, Onision has enough followers. I don't really feel the need to either debunk his idiocy. Well, sometimes I do, or at least I don't want to give him more airtime. So fuck it. No, Father Not next time won't be next week, but in 2 weeks from now. And we will talk about drugs. Well, when I say we, I mean Smirkus. I'm just going to...
No, we're going to have a nice discussion about it. Hopefully.
The 7th of next month, indeed, Captain. I'll put it up in a moment. I am, however, not going to continue to talk. I'm going to say bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.